time. That relentless force that transports us from what was to what will be. Though no one can say exactly what time is, we do know what time it is. For millions, this is a landmark, a special moment in time. But far from all the commotion, millions of others count their years very differently. For Buddhists, the year 2000 came and went more than 500 years ago. In the Muslim world, it's only 1420, while to many Jews, it's the year 5760. Nevertheless, the observance of this year 2000 is a singular opportunity to listen to the heartbeat of the planet. The National Geographic Society has long been capturing time, making it stop, slowing it down, and speeding it up, all to better comprehend the relentless flow from what was to what will be. We invite you now to see the world through our eyes as we explore the epic adventure of life through time. For time is the measure of our universe, and only over time can we understand the natural world. And it is our unique grasp of time that helped give rise to science and culture, to civilization itself. Take time, add exploration and the quest for knowledge, and you have the human story. A story of constant and accelerating change. But now, perhaps, we are at a most critical point, on the verge of controlling nature and on the brink of destroying it. What kind of world will we leave to our children? Only time will tell. In a single ferocious instant, an explosion of heat and light, time, as we know it, began. It was the Big Bang. Some 13 billion years later, the cosmos defines our sense of wonder, strewn with things unimaginable like black holes and towering nebulae trillions of miles high, spawning countless stars. About 2/3 of the way through the history of time, our own solar system was born. A handful of planets and assorted debris orbiting an unremarkable star. In this immense universe, our own planet is like an insignificant blue ornament, tenuously protected by a paper-thin atmosphere. But a closer look reveals that there's something wonderful going on here, something rare perhaps, or even unique, something called life. To see the origin of life, we need only look beneath the waves. Here, hundreds of millions of years ago, the sea was a living soup of tiny organisms. In this vast incubator, life slowly evolved from the simple to the complex. Then, about 540 million years ago, there was an explosion of innovation. Quite suddenly, entirely new forms of life began to emerge. In the millions of years that followed, armor plate and prickly spines appeared to protect creatures from a new threat: predators. In time, deadly jaws appeared, and sinewy creatures who muscled their way into the arms race. Some animals have changed very little over millions of years. Among these living fossils are sharks, part time machine, part killing machine. We are still trying to understand the elusive ways of these remarkably well-adapted predators. On the windswept Farallon Islands off the coast of California, researchers have spent years following the hunting patterns of individual great white sharks.
With that double bite like that.
This bite, it looks like it could be a seal or a sea lion is, you know, bit.
Over 7 years, up to 40 great whites have been identified. Some are observed in one season and then never seen again, while others come back every year.
Look at those marks from year to year and see if they're true.
One of these is a massive 18-foot female named Stumpy, so called because the tip of her tail fin is missing.
She was seen again.
We don't know where Stumpy is during most of the year, but we do know that she shows up here every autumn at the Farallons.
So, pretty consistent. She's almost always in the same area.
That's her hangout.
What's more, she appears to come each year to the same spot to hunt. How do you know Stumpy is here? You set the board out, and she lets you know. This is how a great white kills an elephant seal in the first hit. In one precise torpedo-like blow, the shark hits the prey from below. The stunning impact of the first lightning strike may incapacitate the seal. This strategy saves energy and may minimize the risk of injury to the shark.
This surprising sequence of attack, retreat, and feast has served the shark well for a very long time. But nature was not content to have only the seas populated with living things. After hundreds of millions of years of preparation, out of the water crept life. It took countless generations for gills to become lungs and flippers to evolve into wings or feet. Eventually, a profusion of crawling, flying, and running creatures claimed the land for their own. Reptiles began a 150 million year sovereignty over the planet. It was the age of the dinosaurs. They were the biggest creatures ever to walk the earth. Gone now some 65 million years, they live on in our collective imagination. Among the departed was one of the strangest dinosaurs that ever lived. It was called Oviraptor, and it was swift, smart, and lethal. This expedition is traveling to a remote part of Mongolia to uncover the secrets of the oviraptor's world. Michael Novacek and Mark Norell of the American Museum of Natural History come to this desolate place to piece together a puzzle of evolution and extinction.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 3 over there, 12.
12 eggs. All right.
That's really a great fossil find because it's one of the rare instances where we can capture a little bit of behavior that's 80 million years old.
Here we have a sort of a day in the life or the death of a creature, of a dinosaur, in association with something it did during its life.
This one was fossilized where it dropped, and it happened to drop right on top of its own nest.
She didn't just drop there. The good mother oviraptor was sitting on the nest. They probably brought food to their nest, as birds do. And the good mother tended her eggs. Like a bird, she prodded them into a circle. The fearsome carnivore of the Gobi was parenting.
Then, with remarkable swiftness, the age of dinosaurs was over. What happened exactly remains a mystery. Many scientists believe an asteroid, perhaps 6 miles wide, slammed into Earth and helped snuff out the masters of the world.
From our perspective, of course, this mass extinction event is not a big problem because we're part of the group that survived and started evolving into bats and large hoofed animals and lions and tigers and bears.
With the great reptiles gone, smaller but more adaptable creatures took over. Each learned to succeed in its own way. Some rely on speed and powerful jaws, others strength and a thick skin. But no matter how adaptable a species may be, in the savage struggle between life and death, there is but one simple rule. Those who survive pass their traits to their young. Those who die do not. Every creature is a history book of genetic code. These living ghosts are the product of all the life and death moments endured by all the generations before them.
An ancient species related to both antelopes and pigs, the water chevrotain has been feeding on flowers, fruit, and fungi here for over 20 million years. All that time, predator and prey have been evolving together, honing skills and strategies that make them well matched in the game of survival. Under sharp-eyed surveillance, the chevrotain submerges again. She is completely at home here. She doesn't swim, but simply walks on the bottom, just like a little hippo. Her huge eyes are open wide, but she sees rather poorly, probably much as a human does underwater. Keeping her belly close to the ground to avoid being lifted by the flow, she simply walks away from danger, 4 feet below the surface.
In the most extreme environments, we find the most astonishing adaptations. Forbidding deserts call for new tools for survival. Outmaneuvered by a hungry coyote, this creature seems ready to accept its fate. But the horned lizard has evolved a surprising solution to a desperate dilemma.
The swelling below his eye is not a wound. It's the lizard's last defense. Squirted from a specialized tear duct, a stream of blood is aimed at the coyote's face. The blood is laced with substances that are so distasteful, the coyote wants nothing more to do with the lizard.
Here on the barren ice floes of the Arctic, it's hard to imagine any creature, much less a 1,000-pound brute, finding sustenance. But the polar bear is a resourceful predator with infinite patience.
The seal is safe for the moment, but each new trip to the surface to breathe could end in another ambush. It's an oversized game of cat and mouse.
Mammals thrive by capitalizing on a key innovation rarely found in reptiles: parental care. They are capable of bonding, mother to child, parent to parent, to herd, pod, or pack. But as youth gives way to maturity, animals demonstrate other important capabilities as well. Many of these battles are to seize the most critical moment in animal time, the moment their genes are passed to the next generation. The next chapter in the Book of Life began with creatures that could grasp not only branches, but complex ideas as well. It is here, among the primates, that we begin to see ourselves.
We know that the earliest stage of human evolution happened in a habitat just like this, East African woodland that's got open areas onto which our ancestors eventually moved and adapted to. So to be able to study hunting here is the best way to give us some kind of window onto the earliest origins of meat eating and our own ancestors 4 or more million years ago.
As colobus monkeys are pursued by a band of chimpanzees, we witness the terrifying tenacity of both predator and prey.
As the chimps climb up, the colobus retreat to the highest branches, too slender to bear a chimp's weight. The male colobus stand their ground against chimps up to 4 times their size. They will even take the offensive, momentarily driving the chimps back. Holding his tail out of the chimp's reach, this male buys precious time for the escape of the females and young. With chimps climbing everywhere, one monkey leaps into the arms of death. Even a rear attack by the defending colobus cannot save him.
Resourceful, sociable, intelligent, the chimpanzee has been content to remain in the forest for millions of years. Only occasionally do they wander out into open areas. But one related species, the ancestors of early humans, left the forest for good. And the world was changed forever. Genetically, all humans, no matter what their heritage, are 99.9% identical. It is not what we are, but who we are, what we learn, believe, and create that determines our group identity. And that identity often determines our relationship with time. In many places, time seems to have accelerated at a maddening pace. In other societies, though, time is like an easy traveling companion, as one moves through life in the eternal now. In the highlands of Papua New Guinea lives a remote society with their own understanding of time.
For thousands of years, this Stone Age group had been hidden from the outside world. As time and exposure worked their changes on most other peoples, Hogahai culture remained more or less the same, a living secret deep in the highlands of Papua New Guinea. Possibly the last unknown group on Earth.
Carol Jenkins, a medical anthropologist, began working with the Hogahai, helping them cope with malaria and other diseases that threatened their very existence. She found their concept of time fascinating.
Their sense of time is much more like what people say of Australian Aborigine time, the dreaming. That is, it's always the same, it goes over and over again. It's a connection in an almost mystical sense between the ancestors and today.
Much of human culture is anchored in our traditions, and often these traditions are linked to our sense of time. Everywhere we commemorate rites of passage and shared beliefs that mark our voyage through life, and we celebrate them in the language of music and dance. Like it or not, much of our precious time on this planet is consumed by work. The sheer diversity of labor reflects the vast scale and scope of the human experience. On the Indian subcontinent, much work is still done by hand. Here, north of Mumbai, mostly barefoot workers disassemble giant steel ships, reducing them to scrap. The work is dangerous, the rewards are meager, but to make a living, they persist. But all work in India is not this punishing. In sheer numbers, India has the world's largest middle class. The country's railways are a lifeline for all of India's 1 billion people, crossing not only vast distances, but bridging diverse cultures. Over 1.5 million workers keep the trains running on schedule. In many ways, the railway has become the country's grand and reliable timekeeper.
At Borivali Station, 15 men have been meeting up for 10 years. They call themselves the 854 Group, and every morning they stake out strategic spots along the platform. With speed and luck, they can claim a few seats that they'll share between them. They have only 30 seconds before the train pulls out again, and consider their daily ritual like a workout at the gym.
Very few of us choose to risk our lives on a regular basis. For those who take up hazardous occupations, the excitement, danger, and rush of adrenaline can be addicting.
When does a job become a mission? A career become a quest? How do you face each day at work when you know it could be your last?
Al was our friend. And I'm going to miss him a hell of a lot.
The way we live our lives is often shaped by our attitude towards death. But few embrace the dead as wholeheartedly as the Naju Dayaks of central Borneo. Anthropologist Anne Schiller has spent almost 15 years studying the death rites of the Dayak peoples. She takes part in a ceremony called Tiwa, during which the villagers dig up the bones of their dead parents, spouses, and children. They do this so the spirit of their loved ones might go in the afterlife to what they call the prosperous village.
If the head of a family hasn't been able to hold a tiwa, he is very troubled and unsettled in his mind. He asks himself, how can I save my parents so they can go to the prosperous village?
This is all about taking care of their parents. I mean, what these people are doing is they're giving life to their parents in the way their parents gave life to them. So they're caring for them the way you care for a child. You're washing it, and you're nurturing it, and you're making sure it's comfortable.
Now that the bones have been exhumed, the Tiwa progresses to the ritual blood sacrifice.
Blood protects you from illness. It protects you from evil supernatural beings that might bother you. And so sacrifices are held because you need that blood of the chicken or the pig or the cow or the water buffalo in order to anoint people and to anoint things to make sure that the people and the things remain safe.
From a culture that honors death to the death of cultures themselves. All over the world, unique societies are under threat, their way of life as vulnerable as endangered plants or animals. According to some estimates, nearly half of the world's 6,000 languages will disappear in the next century. The realities of an emerging global culture and economy often provide little incentive for preserving them.
Good morning, children. How did you?
How do you do? Thank you.
Sit down.
Thank you, sir.
How does a people hold on to its own identity, its own traditions, and still remain open to the outside world?
What the?
Disappearing cultures have much to tell us, if only we can take the time to listen. Long before maps and compasses, those who ventured into unknown places would leave a sign for those who followed that said, "We were here." The idea of being first, of leaving one's mark in time and space, inspires modern explorers as well. They helped to define and describe our world. The exploits of these 20th century adventurers continue to fascinate and inspire. Many, indeed, have achieved a measure of immortality. Among them, Admiral Robert Peary and pioneering African-American explorer Matthew Henson, considered to be the first men to reach the top of the world. Admiral Richard Byrd was credited as being the first to fly over both poles. Hiram Bingham discovered the fabled lost city of Machu Picchu, while William Beebe and Otis Barton were the first to probe the deep ocean. In our own era, Jacques Cousteau allowed us all to be explorers of a wonderful new realm and championed our need to preserve it. Today, being first is the passion of many. But the goal is often not a place on the map. For these brave souls, it's not so much where they're going as how they get there. Mount Everest, first conquered in 1953, has been climbed by the hundreds. Still, for every 7 that reach the summit, one climber will die.
It's a mountain that you regard with considerable respect. I don't know anybody who has a feeling of affection for the mountain.
You can climb it 3 times, 5 times, 100 times. You don't conquer it, you survive it.
If there is a cold day, it's not 20 below, it's 40 below, 45, 50 below zero Celsius. And this is hard for human beings. If there is a storm coming, it's much stronger because you're much higher up.
Windy, very cold, strong, very cold. It's difficult.
It's really very difficult to do anything. All you want to do is lie down, even that's hard work.
You know, physically, I experienced an awful lot of problems. I had an ulcerated toe with the bone showing, an intestinal parasite. I lost 35 pounds in 5 days going to the summit.
I'm nearly at the summit. Just a few more steps. Not far now.
But this overwhelming feeling of incredible difficulty, pain, suffering, is suddenly over.
Well, I'm on top. I've made it.
It's difficult to really ascertain how important it is to be there. And I know instinctively I really wanted to stand on the highest point of Earth, as I think most climbers do.
Hey there, I'm on the summit. You're both great hitters. We're absolutely proud today.
If the roof of the world is becoming a little crowded, much of the deep ocean remains a mystery to scientists like Dr. Robert Ballard. His early expeditions included the first exploration of the mid-Atlantic ridge and the discovery in the eastern Pacific of hot water vents surrounded by incredible new life forms. But Ballard is perhaps best known for exploring the most storied shipwreck of the 20th century. And since Titanic, he's been probing further and further back in time.
We're sitting right now in ruins that are on the island of Sicily. To travel from civilization to civilization here in the Mediterranean, you must cross the Mediterranean, and many of those ships didn't make it. Many of those ships went to the bottom, and many of them went into the deep sea. Between ancient Carthage and Rome, it's 12,000 feet deep.
Using the remotely operated vehicle Jason and a U.S. Navy nuclear submarine, Ballard has led a team of archaeologists to the largest concentration of ancient shipwrecks ever found in the deep sea. Almost a half a mile below an ancient trade route, thousands of artifacts from 8 ships were found strewn all over the seabed. Later, they returned to the site and recovered Roman clay jars that once contained ancient trade goods like olive oil and wine.
There's glass.
Among the bounty were glass cups traded by Arab merchants who sailed these same waters 1,500 years later.
Look at this. Someone hold this. What has surprised me the most is that we thought this was one event, that this was a fleet of ships, a group of ships that sank together, and it's not at all. We have ships spanning over 1,500 years of history. Heavy, Kathy. Very heavy. I feel very good. I feel that this really is a historic expedition. This is the first major deep-sea archaeological expedition.
The age of exploration is still far from over. Ian Baker and Ken Storm are in search of a hidden waterfall that others claimed to have glimpsed from afar, but none have ever mapped or measured. They follow footsteps from the past.
In 1924, British botanist Frank Kingdon Ward led an expedition to Tibet, searching for a waterfall as grand as Africa's Victoria Falls. He pushed his way through much of the wild and forbidding Sangpo gorges, but never found what he was seeking. On this expedition, Ken and Ian are determined to finish Kingdon Ward's journey.
It's a place that gives life, but it's a place also of enormous danger, and it can take life at any moment.
The Tsangpo Gorge can plunge over 16,000 feet, 3 times deeper than the Grand Canyon. A single misstep could send a traveler 1,000 feet to his death. It was near here that Kingdon Ward's exhausted guides insisted on turning back. And sure enough, this modern team had doubts as well.
I think we all reached a point where we were suddenly questioning whether it was really going to be possible at all.
Despite 17 days of difficult trekking, the expedition decides to press on. Finally, they punch their way through a clearing.
Into that energy. Can you imagine? Incredible. Every drop from Mount Kailash all the way past Mount Everest, all the way to this point.
After a century of speculation, the Great Falls has finally been placed on the map. Named Hidden Falls of Dorje Pamo, it measures between 100 and 115 feet, with an enormous volume of water that makes it so extraordinary.
To actually come upon something new and undiscovered late in the 20th century is remarkable.
Even in places that are mapped, there are new worlds to explore, like the lush rainforest canopy.
I realized at that moment, that first rope climb, I knew where I was going for the rest of my life. I was going up to the canopy.
It takes hard work and courage to conquer this new world. But when they climb, Nalini and other canopy researchers are also returning to a very old world.
We really felt like pioneers. We felt like we were frontiersmen going to where no human had ever gone before. And everything we picked up was something new and something different. New species, new interactions.
For aerialist Philippe Petit, a life in balance is a challenge in itself. Here he undertakes a daring walk over 300 feet above the medieval Swiss village of Saillon.
I am discovering, conquering a new world, a world that is actually no man's land. It is dangerous, yes, if I miss the why, I am not here anymore, but it's so simple, so beautifully simple. The left, the right, the center, the balance. It's the essence of life. What I do is seemingly useless, but actually is an inspiration. Looking up is flying your own way. People who don't have wings, they can fly by looking up.
The Earth is some 4.5 billion years old, yet little time remains to undo the damage that we've wrought in our own brief moment on the planet. The oil fields of Kuwait, 1991. The aftermath of a brief but destructive war. The fires have now raged for months. The damage to the environment is nothing short of catastrophic. But much sooner than anyone expected, an international team of workers snuffed out the flames, one by one. Many of these people had never done such work before.
We have proved so many things that nobody took a chance before to do it. Nobody was daring before to do it. We proved that yes, we can do it. Once you have the will, you could do anything you'd like to do. And we were given a chance to prove this, and we did prove it.
All over the globe, concerned citizens have mobilized to preserve and protect endangered species and habitats. The power of such dedicated people is proven today by the continued existence of creatures once nearly annihilated by man, the great whales. Today they are known and loved with such passion that the survival of most species of whales seems assured. But for other creatures, time is running out. In central China, Professor Pan Wenshe dedicates his life to the imperiled population of giant pandas remaining in the wild.
My friends in Beijing always ask, why do you continue to work in the field year after year? When will it end? Your work has been published, why don't you stop? I tell them my goal is to protect the panda and to establish a refuge for them in the wild. That is my mission, but it will be difficult. Achieving this goal may take my entire lifetime, and even that may not be enough.
In suburban Atlanta, Sue Barnard tries to overcome popular fears about a creature valuable to the ecosystem.
Here we go. We're gonna see some bats, okay? You ready? Yeah. You ready? All right. He's being a good boy, isn't he? We know they're mad. No. Would you do that?
The children are our future, and they're marvelous.
Mine is a flying fox.
They're open to learning. They see and they form their own opinions by what they're seeing.
Look, Ed.
Bat's got friends, but Bat's got to have more friends.
It's called a big brown bat.
From the suburbs to the inner city, conservationists are often where you least expect to find them. Arthur Bonner, ex-gang member, spent 7 years in juvenile detention and prison.
Good morning. My name is Arthur, and you guys are out here to help us out to save an endangered species. It's called a Palos Verdes.
When Arthur got out of jail, he joined the LA Conservation Corps. His life was soon turned around by a tiny six-legged companion called the Palos Verdes blue butterfly. Arthur is one of just 3 people who are permitted to gather the butterflies.
I'm very dedicated to coming down here. I love to do what I'm doing. I love my work.
He uses all his powers of persuasion to help his captives reproduce.
Okay, girls, which one of you laid some eggs for me today? The 5 females that's actually collected out the wild. You know, I bring them in, I have to watch them lay their eggs. There you go, you gave me one. The butterfly only has a 5-day lifespan, and it's up to me to keep her baby alive.
For 10 years, the Palos Verdes blue butterfly was thought to be extinct. It is still considered one of the rarest butterflies in the world.
Come here. Those are my girls. I love them all. They actually kept me from being extinct as much as I'm saving them from being extinct. They're saving me, and I'm saving them.
It's very easy to dismiss the bugs and the weeds of the world, but science is revealing every year just how important are these little things on which we and other larger organisms depend. They cleanse the water, they create the soil, and the very air we breathe.
The case for protecting all life forms has been made powerfully by Dr. Jane Goodall. She now speaks to the next generation, for it is our children who must carry the message forward.
It's terribly important, I think, that children should grow up not having this incredibly arrogant view that the world was made for us humans. We all matter. We all have a place in the world. Each species, whether it's human or non-human, has been evolved over countless thousands and thousands of years into a perfect organism, and we should respect that.
Our growing understanding and respect for all life is the key to a sustainable future for planet Earth. For it inevitably means that the human animal, like all others, must respect certain limits. If we make the planet safe for every creature, it will be safe for us. Then only the searing fire of a dying sun can put an end to us. And that's not for billions of years. If we make the planet safe for every creature, there will be plenty of time.